Glenn, good, go? Okay. I'll call the Thursday, February 29th, 2024 meeting of the Cumberland Planning Board to order. Roll call, Ms. Varsich.
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Mr. Bush. Ms. Reese.
Here.
Mr. Costa.
Here.
And the chairs are present. Absent are Mr. McDonald, Mr. Scown, and Mr. D'Ambrosia. Approval of the planning board minutes of January 11th, 2024 and January 25th, 2024. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Butler and seconded by Ms. Varsich to approve both the January 11th and January 25th planning board minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Public meeting, formal development plan review, preliminary plan applicant Sarah Murphy, Murfield Farm LLC, owner Bruce and Lucia Field, project name Murfield Farm Riding Ring, location 24 Mason Drive, assessors plat 28, lot 93, zoning is A2 with no public water or sewer. The applicant seeks development plan review approval to construct an approximately 8,700 square foot enclosed riding ring building. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant operates a horse farm on a 23-acre property that has a recently completed horse barn. The applicant is proposing to build a riding ring that will be attached to the south side of the barn. The ring will be about 8,700 square feet, about 30 feet high. The only potential issue I saw when I visited the property was the proximity of the new ring to the adjacent neighbor at 38 Murphy Drive, but that owner has sent in a letter of support that was included in your packet. So it's a fairly straightforward project. It's by right. It requires no waivers and no variances. This is the first formal development plan review project before this board since the new ordinances and regulations went into effect on January 1st. So for DPR, there are no findings of fact like other development projects. Instead, the board has to find consistency with the land development and subdivision regulations, which this project does. So we are recommending approval of the application.
So, board, have any questions? Mr. Modica. Okay, thank you. Is the applicant or his representative here? Yes. Or her representative? Or their representative?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is James Murphy on behalf of the applicant. I'm an attorney at Kelly Souza and Parmenter. The address is 128 Dorn Street, Suite 300, Providence, Rhode Island. The application before you, as Mr. Modica said, is for an 8,720 square foot indoor equestrian riding ring, which will be attached to an existing 11-stall horse barn, which was recently built by the applicant. The property in which Murfield Farm operates is an approximately 23-acre lot. It's zoned A2. This property has historically been a cow pasture and beef farm for decades in the town of Cumberland prior to being sold to its current owner. It's currently being operated as a horse farm by Murfield Farms and Sarah Murphy, where people can stable their horses as a place to provide shelter, care, and exercise. As stated by Mr. Modica, based on the passage of the new ordinance 23-31A, which had a great amount of public support both before the town council and this planning board, the proposed riding ring is an allowed use under the code, and the applicant does not require any waivers or variances. The proposed riding ring will provide additional shelter and indoor grounds for the horses that are already stabled on this farm in order to be exercised, trained, and or rehabilitated, especially during the harsh winter months. Now, one of the concerns that Mr. Modica briefly brought up was the buffer vegetation that's going to be removed as part of the building of the riding ring, and in particular with the abutters 38 Murphy Drive. As he noted, the abutters from 38 Murphy Drive provide a letter of support. They're well aware of the riding ring and where it will be. Additionally, and I believe Mr. Modica put this in his report as well, that the vegetation that's going to be removed is it's not going to be completely removed. There still will be a buffer there between 38 Murphy Drive and the proposed riding ring. The The proposed riding ring is in conformance with the town land development and subdivision regulations. It meets all the design standard requirements as articulated in section 6, 7, and 8 of those regulations. And lastly, the proposed riding ring will be a welcome addition to the town of Cumberland and the residents herein who strongly support horse farms in this community. As the board is aware, based on the large turnout of residents that were before this board when the text change ordinance was proposed, this town supports horse stabling and the riding and boarding facilities. And this riding ring will only add to that, the horse community that shows great support for horse farms throughout this town. If the board has any questions of me, I'm happy to answer. I also have David D'Amico, the project engineer here. He's happy to answer any questions for you as well. I'm sure that the board is familiar with Mr. D'Amico, but I can go through his background training experience if necessary. And with that, I'll leave it to the board for any questions for myself or Mr. D'Amico.
Does the board have any questions?
I do.
Mr. Costa?
Last month, we heard great statements from a lot of horse people in the town, and I'd like to hear from somebody that you're representing right now.
You would like to hear, I'm sorry, the last part?
I'd like to hear from somebody you're representing this evening.
You would like to hear from the applicant?
Yes.
She wasn't prepared to make a statement today.
No statement, no,
Yeah.
I just want to hear just from anybody.
Okay. May I have one second, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
No need to be scared.
Oh, I'm not. Sarah Murphy, 34 Murphy Drive, Cumberland, Rhode Island, owner of Murfield Farm.
You guys did a nice job last month, you and the entire group. I was
Thank
very
you.
impressed with everybody that came forward and talked about what they had, what their concerns were, and I learned a lot last month. So my question to you is there anything that you'd like to add that the attorney has not stated this evening? Anything. It's like, I mean, I heard about horses that can't go out and eat grass and eat leaves and all kinds of, those are the kinds of things that we did not know about. And I'm sure I'm not speaking just for myself. I'm speaking for the board. But is there anything that you like to
Well,
personally?
I think that the meetings that we had prior more focused on density of horses per land and didn't really focus or even talk about horses and the need for a riding ring and the reasons why. So I guess for me, just kind of giving you an understanding as to why this would be something that is appropriate for Cumberland or for my property in particular. Currently, I have 10 horses on the property, and I can't exercise any of them appropriately. I can't open the other half of my barn because the stormwater plan would be going on another side of my barn where I can't put up fencing and stuff until I have the indoor. And so this to me would kind of make my business plan full circle. It would bring in more clients for me. It would make my job much easier. Being able to exercise them during inclement weather is huge. Today was a struggle for me. In the wind and the weather that we had today, it was definitely a struggle for me. So having something that is protective against the elements is pretty crucial, and it's standard in this area of New England to have. So I guess that's...
Those are the kinds of things that I personally didn't know anything about, and I don't know if anybody else on the board knows anything about that, but
Yeah,
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming
you're
forward.
welcome.
Without knowing that you were going to be called up.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice job, nice job.
Any other questions?
Just wondering if they're going to be doing training horses for equestrian competition? Can you turn your mic on? Yes, it is. Get closer. Okay. Are you doing any training for equestrian events or competitions or just exercising?
There will be no event at the farm.
Okay,
It's training for events, but we're not planning on having events at the farm.
okay, thank you.
Did the board have any questions for Mr. D'Amico as well? He's here.
At this point, the only thing that came to mind, and obviously, there's an existing barn there, and you have your horses there. Is there any kind of outdoor storage? You know, hay, stuff like that, and obviously, latrine facilities for horses. Latrine facilities for horses.
Yeah, why don't you answer this question? You're the best one for it.
So there's 2 barns on the property. One barn was an existing barn when we bought the property. It has a very large hay loft within that barn. It's separate from this facility. So that's where we keep all of our storage, is in the other barn, not in the current barn. And I built it that way for fire hazards, dust, respiratory issues that the horses can get when you have hay in the same barn as the horses. So yeah, there is storage on the farm, but it's not within that part of the facility.
I was just curious in the operation of it.
Yep.
Not being a horse person, so.
And then in regards to, I'm guessing that you were talking about the manure?
Yes.
Okay, so currently, it's taken off-site every 3 weeks and taken to another farm. And then for future, we're working with the Northern Rhode Island Conservation Board in order to put composting bays so that we can reuse our own manure as compost and fertilizer fields.
That's a good idea.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. No, and I will echo Mr. Costa. I mean, for us, it was very informative. The testimony that was given was outstanding. It brought a number of points to our attention that we would have never have thought about. And thank God we have the experts to give us a little bit of a tutorial on it.
Yes.
So I don't have any other questions at this
Okay.
point.
Any
And
other
does anybody here on the board have any questions for Mr. D'Amico?
I'm good.
All good? Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, yeah, we're going to,
Just because this is your first development plan review under the new act, it's not a public hearing, but your practice is to allow public comment. I just want to be clear. There wasn't any notice, James. We didn't do notice, right? Yeah. So James and I talked about this. No notice is required, so we did not provide notice to butters. But if there is anybody in the audience, you usually allow them to speak.
yes. I had asked Mr. Modica earlier today, when we were going over tonight's agenda, just that question, okay? And because I always invite anyone to informally comment, even though it's not a public hearing, we'd like to hear from the audience if they have anything questions that they may have. So with that being said, if there's anyone in the audience that has any questions and would like to learn a little bit more about the horse business, as this board has, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record. And Mr. Mocha, is there anybody in the queue?
We have 4 people
Okay.
on Zoom.
I don't see anyone here who's raised their hand, so.
If anyone on Zoom would like to comment on this matter, press the raise your hand icon at the bottom of your screen. And there's no one, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to 24 Mason Drive, Assessors Plot 28, Lot 93, that we approve the preliminary plan as the application is consistent with the provisions of the land development and subdivision regulations as outlined in Mr. Modica's memo to the planning board dated 2/21/24.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler.
Second.
Second by Ms. Reese. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? The chair votes yes. Thank you. The motion carries, and good luck. Item number 4, public hearing, major land development, master plan, unified development review, applicant Thomas Almeida, owner Dean Development LLC. Project name Cumberland Physical Therapy, location 1140 Mendon Road, assessors plat 34, lot 261. Zoning is I-1 with public water and public sewer. The applicant requests approval of a special use permit to operate a physical therapy business in an I-1 zone and requests master plan approval to construct a one-story, 4,975 square foot physical therapy building. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an undeveloped 3-acre parcel on Mendon Road, just above Martin Street. And the applicant is proposing a one-story building to house a physical therapy practice. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this project and found no issues related to drainage or traffic. The fire department did have some comments regarding access within the property, and that's been addressed in the revised plans that you have. Moving forward, if the board does approve this master plan, the applicant will also provide a landscape plan, which may reduce the number of parking spaces, but right now they're proposing more than what's required. And because there are some residences to the south of the property, the applicant will also submit a lighting plan. But there's two wrinkles here with this project. The first is a special use permit. This application was certified complete under the previous zoning ordinance, which allowed physical therapy by special use. But as you saw in your staff report, physical therapy was also lumped in with a lot of other medical uses. Under the new zoning, we prohibited that entire section, Use Code 28. We took it out not because we don't want physical therapy, but because what was involved really to keep it in. First, we didn't want to make it a blanket yes and allow all those uses by right. But to keep it a special use, we had to come up with specific criteria. And generally the criteria is related to landscaping, setbacks, fences, that kind of thing. But because there's so many uses in that category, we'd have to come up with a long list of specific criteria that could cover different development scenarios. So we support physical therapy in industrial zones, and as we've discussed at other meetings, there are a lot of other allowable uses in industrial zones that could be nuisances. So when we amended the zoning ordinance, what we did for expediency, for taking out that use code, but not because we want to prohibit physical therapy. So we support physical therapy in industrial zones, and that's something we're going to have to correct in the ordinance this year. So I hope that part all makes sense for the rationale of what happened. The second wrinkle is the Superbond site, known as Operational Unit 1 or OU1. It's a contaminated site that's more towards the Blackstone River rather than at the higher elevation of this property. But when OU1 was first identified, it encompassed the industrial property directly to the south at 35 Martin Street, which is lot 100. This lot, lot 261, was historically part of that bigger property until 2018 when it was subdivided from the larger parcel. So I don't know a lot about Superfund sites, so I contacted the EPA to find out what was going on. And so the applicant is basically caught up in all this because the two lots were once one, not because there are known contaminants, but because this piece was part of a larger regulated site. So they have to conduct monitoring and prepare 3 reports for EPA's review and approval. So EPA basically, they're involved just out of an abundance of caution, not because of risk. In any event, we'll want to see that EPA has approved the plans before the project can proceed. So with that, the planning department finds the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we're recommending approval of the master plan.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Modica? Hearing none? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bush.
This is the parcel just past the gas station going south on Mendon Road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, on the right.
Do they still need to do some work on that site? Is it still, I know they were knocking it down.
Work on this
The site itself, I thought it was kind of ledge and a lot of ledge there.
There's a lot of ledge, right, there's a lot of ledge right on Mendon Road too, but
yeah.
it's flat when you go in.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Okay. Is the applicant here or his representative?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Joe Lamagna. I'm an attorney. I have an office at 2417 Mendon Road in Woonsocket. With me is Mr. Almeida, who is the applicant. I'm not going to bore you with a rehash of the recommendation. I think that the town and Mr. Almeida and his team put a lot of work and a lot of effort into making this presentation to the recommendation for you. I think they've covered the statute, they've covered the law, they've covered your procedure, they've covered the zoning ordinance. We would just urge that you approve this so that this can go forward. It's been a long time in coming. If you have any questions of the applicant, his contractor is here and his architect is here.
Mr. Butler?
I just had one question. I guess it's a follow-up on Mr. Bush's question. So, and maybe Mr. D'Amico can answer this. So facing Mendon Road is kind of that hill with all that ledge. Is the plan to just, it looked like when I looked at the blueprints that all that was just staying there, but I just wanted to make sure, I was just concerned about any kind of blasting of ledge in that area or things like that.
Review, because it does sound like, so what you're looking at is the existing condition plan. It doesn't look like that's gonna go. So, the existing condition plan, you can kind of see the, line of, cleared area, okay? And the area up along the frontage of Mendon Road, which is to the west, the east, of the site. There is quite a mound of ledge there, and it's always been there, and I believe the previous owner went in there and started and obviously picked the easiest path to get in there, and then did his clearing and some excavation, and essentially I used that to design the site. Economically when it comes to, oh, I'm sorry, oh, does that one work? I gotta get me one of those. So I just quickly go over the site. So as you could see, the most efficient way was to come in this southern portion of the site with the entrance, 20-foot entrance, which is what DOT allowed, because this is a DOT road, and then come up into the parking, this relatively small parking field. I believe there's 25 spots. We meet the, I want to say, I think we have a requirement of 18, and the client was looking for a little bit more than that, so we got 25 here. And this, what you see here is a emergency turnaround so that the emergency vehicle could come up, back in, and go forward out, and then head to the north, to the back to the station, if that was required. Building here, and it's sitting right up on top, and I tried to get it in a position where we were minimizing any rock removal. And then you could see what we've done. This is all quite a hill going down to the eventually the river, and I used that area as the drainage swale and treatment. Oh, and then we could just go to that quickly so you can take a look at that. So, so essentially, it's about a 5% slope going up, so that's really not bad. We have a drainage system in here that we'll get the building up a little high. It will flow to the back area and then drain into a bioretention filter that will not stay full, because I know, based on my work with the school, they don't like any water in the bottom of these, so we will empty that out. We'll let that empty out over a long period of time. And then what I did was I used the side of the hill to get this in. That's why you don't see like this, kind of see like a U shape. That's because we're using this slope here as the back side of the system. One thing I had to do, which was problematic for me, all this ends up going down to the state's drainage system, and I had to keep that at 0 or less. So I was fortunate enough to, because of the elevation, fortunate enough to be able to get a catch basin in here to collect this and then pump that into the system also. So I'm pretty close to approval with DOT on that. I answered some comments that had really nothing to do with drainage, just the makeup of the sidewalk. I guess over there, the town had them put in a brick walkway or an element in the sidewalk. If you guys ever see it, there's like 2 bricks that run on the back side of the curb, and they wanted them. I didn't pick that up, so that is picked up now. And that's kind of it. The utilities will all run out. You can see it right here. That's water, sewer, gas. So everything is in Mendon Road. It's pretty plentiful in Mendon Road. That's about it.
Does the board have any questions?
So,
Mr. Bush?
I guess you won't have to take down any of that hill in the front, they're just gonna leave that, okay?
That is correct. Yeah,
Okay.
let me go back there. Yup, that is gonna, yeah, you can see we're not touching that. My
Right.
limited disturbance essentially runs, ooh, I'm really shaky. Essentially runs right along the existing limits of disturbance there. I also kept the limited disturbance under an acre, so that's under an acre, so I don't really need to go to DEM for a RIPDES, because we do not have more than an acre of disturbance. So I did that, though this drainage follows the Rhode Island Stormwater Manual.
Any other questions? Typically, and it's not necessarily something that the board really looks at, but you have the elevations of the building, but usually they have to show the floor plan and so on, and I understand that, the building official is going to go over wherever other exits have to be, and so, safety exits and so on. But with that in mind, as far as access from the building, where do you anticipate where those points may be? Obviously, if it's on either end of the building or behind the building, is there going to be some kind of a walkway or something like that?
Yes, yep. So I had some advanced plans, and essentially we did not, there, you can see how the sidewalk wraps around on that side, wraps around on that side. There were 2 accesses here for the back, and then the main access in the front. So I do have, made provisions to connect to whatever there was on the opening, yes. Yeah, I mean, if there is a third one, we'll just go right across the back with that sidewalk. But there just wasn't really a need for it back there.
Well, like I said, it's the building official's bailiwick.
Yes.
But as far as the exterior of the building is, and you've adequately addressed the, sidewalks that we would have to have.
Yes, yes, sir.
So I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Ms.
It's
Reese?
just For handicap, I noticed that you only have 2 handicap spaces for, seeing that it's a physical therapy, and I know the volume goes up and down. Would it be better to have another space for handicap? You have 2, one on each side of the main entrance, right?
Correct, yes. So that's kind of the
Just,
way we designed it. We designed
right,
it, the
I
main
just-
entrance to,
Do
you
you-
know, to have the space, the
Right.
access space right at the main entrance. So we do have one more than what we're required, because with 25 or less, you're required to have at least one. So I would go to the professional on that, whether
Yeah,
he needs
Tom.
more than that, I'm not sure.
We could discuss it. Two is probably adequate. We could always look at adding a third one in. Typically, I would say throughout the course of a day, we probably wouldn't need more than that. The majority of the people are ambulatory and able to get in, but it's definitely something we could look at as far as adding a third one.
Sometimes
Right.
it's not the ambulatory, it's the cars with the stickers that we don't even know if they handicap or not, but they do have them, and they
Right.
I'm not sure how much
Yeah.
of a need that is. However, they in the lot with those handicap parked elsewhere because further. So it's, I know the requirement is 1, you have 2, but from my perspective, in the medical field, I think I would like to see 1 more. But that's my opinion.
Well, actually, that's a very good point, and I never thought of that. I've had experience with, my wife has had both her knees done, and my son had a catastrophic injury, and he ended up going to the, well, now it's Kettle Point, but before it was over by Butler Hospital. And he didn't have and didn't require a handicap sticker, plate or anything. But it took him over 6 months to get from a wheelchair to being able to use a walker and so on. What we did over at the facility over by Butler, we just pulled up and we just dropped them off at the door, because they did, at that point, they provided an area for vehicles to be able to drop off and pick up anyone who's, not just someone who's handicapped, but someone who's either on crutches and has had somewhat of a temporary injury, but it'd be easier for them to get as close to the building as possible. So, and the other place my wife went to was up in Woonsocket, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, and that was limited. So what I had to do was I had to drop her at the door, well, not literally, but help her out, with crutches to get to the door and so on. Then I would go park my car wherever I could find a parking space. But that's a good point.
Yeah, I think the access point that we have set up right now between the 2 handicap spaces is relatively close to the door for the drop-off that you're talking about, but I think we're going to have to adjust the parking lot anyways for landscape, I believe, so when we do that, we could also incorporate possibly a third designated handicap parking space as well.
Well, as this board, and you could, Mr. Cosner already talked about the horse stables and so on. We relied on their expertise to guide us, okay? And so we're doing the same thing with you, relying on your expertise when it comes to matters like this, because you can have zoning regulations that say you need X number of handicap parking spaces. Well, that's just, okay, it's a one-size-fits-all kind of requirement. But in a case like the patients that you're going to be seeing, it's a different game. So the only people we can refer to is you.
Yeah. Right now where I am, there's 2 handicap spots
We've been there for over 10 years. It seems to be going smoothly. If they need to, they'll be dropped off, like you said, closer to the door. The handicap spaces right now are actually further away from our entrance. It's kind of in just a general center of the parking lot. So these would actually be more conducive for my clientele, but it's definitely, I think if we have to make adjustments to the parking lot anyways, with, like I said, due to the landscaping, then I'm all for it. If it's conducive and we can make it work, I don't have any issues with adding a third handicap space, of course, but.
Well, I mentioned Kettle Point, and I have experience there because I have a relative who was confined to a wheelchair, and from time to time I'm asked to take him to meet with his physician and so on. And in Kettle Point, it's like almost the whole front of the building is all handicapped parking. But something I really liked, and I wish that it was a requirement, is all of handicap spaces, there was no raised curb. There was a curbing, but it was flush with the pavement. So it made it easy for somebody, not just somebody who was in a wheelchair, but also somebody who would have difficulty trying to lift and step up. So that is something I would suggest maybe wherever.
Yeah, I think it's a ramp. I think there's, it has to be a ramp.
Yeah, oh no, I know there's a requirement for a ramp, but this was the entire length of the front of Kettle Point, where all the parking spaces were. It wasn't as though somebody had to get out in a wheelchair and work their way over to where the ramp was. There was absolutely no need for a ramp because all of the curbing was flush with the pavement. So no matter what parking space they were in, they just got out and they could manage.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great idea. I didn't know if it had to be actual curbed.
Well, no, it's not a requirement, but I was impressed when I went to Kettle Point and I saw that. I said, why don't they do that? It would make it so much easier for anybody who's disabled. So,
Well, I could talk to that. Okay. All right, because I certainly deal with that all the time. I just did the front entrance to Rhode Island Hospital. Essentially, if you have a large sidewalk, and I mean depth-wise, 10 feet, 8 feet, you can do that because the vehicles won't tend to go over the line, all right? If they do, you have plenty of room. If you have 5 feet and somebody doesn't have a curb, they're gonna you're gonna end up having problems with parking.
well, I'm not
Because
sure if-
people don't
yeah.
always see their front. Maybe with the newer vehicles, you can see the front, but a lot of them you don't, and they ends up being a problematic that way. All right, so these are 5-foot sidewalks, and we do also see curb as a barrier. All right, if you don't put a barrier and somebody goes flying through, you essentially didn't have a barrier there. So curbing is considered a barrier. That's why we have it in, there are many reasons why we have it on roads, but it is considered a barrier on a road. So it is on a sidewalk also. So it does provide us some barrier. I've had the issue with the hospital, whether we should go with bollards and stuff like that, but you can see how the expense starts changing when you change that. But there is a 9-foot wide, in this particular case, we did it 9 foot, it would be the whole width, so, for a wheelchair ramp, so it should be more than adequate in this type of setting.
Well, I'll grant you, Kettle Point it's a big
huge.
building, it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of people.
Yep.
I don't remember or recall if there were bollards there, but when you mentioned bollards,
Yeah.
I said, gee, why don't you use bollards?
Yeah.
But, is it something that's necessary
Yeah.
in a smaller building like this? I don't know. I just figured I'd
Probably
throw that out and.
Probably not.
And,
I don't think so. I mean, we do in nursing facilities now, we like to get rid of the curb. So, because it is a tripping hazard, so if you can do it properly and you got the space in the room, you know, it's a good idea because it really does, you can go back and forth and you don't have to worry about stepping that 6 inches. But, in these particular cases where we have parking up against the building, I think you want curbing up against there. I know I do.
I just threw it out there for discussion because it's something that impressed me over there. And and obviously the application is a little bit different in the type of building. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I just agree that we rely on the pros when it comes to how many spaces they need for parking, for handicap parking, because the situation you're talking about when you're dropping your son off or dropping somebody off because they're on crutches, they're not going to have the sticker anyway to park in a handicap parking place. So it doesn't matter if you have a third one or a fourth one, they're not going to park there. They can't. So I'm certain he wants to take care of his clients. He's successful already. He probably knows how many people come in each day that would need that service. So I would rely on his expertise.
Well, let me make it clear. It's not a sticking point with me.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Not at all. It's just something that's, worth a little bit of discussion. And, and I know I will rely on Isabel anyway because she is one of the pros from Dover. So, any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Costa?
I would think if it became an issue where you needed another spot, you can quite easily just take a handicap sign and put it in front of one of the parking spaces next to the already originated, handicap spaces. So, I mean, in worst case scenario, if enough people complained about it, we need another spot, you can make another spot. So,
That's quite creative, Mr. Costa.
thank you very much. It's because I'm on,
may need that
it's because I'm on crutches now, that's why. It's a whole learning experience, ladies and gentlemen. Get on crutches and get out there and see what it's like. But thank you.
Any other questions? I think we addressed all the drainage, okay, and the disturbances, and I'm glad that the site works for you, so you don't have to do a lot of excavating, and plus it's not going to have a basement, right? It's just going to be a slab on grade, so you don't have to worry about any other ledge and.
Well,
Other than the
I think,
drainage.
we do have drainage and utilities, but, and we're gonna definitely hit rock, but, I took the shortest distance. There is the ability, the previous owners did leave an easement, a utility easement in this corner, which would go out to Martin Street. Now, Martin Street has all the utilities, all the required utilities. But as you can see, the distance going out that way, going down, the side of a hill, I just thought it was problematic.
It's a lot of expense.
I just felt it was going to be, you're taking a guess that you're not going to hit rock because this is all wooded, but I have been back here. It looks like it's rock to me,
Just as a matter of aside, that would also require further disturbance of the site. And there's an EPA lien on this property that prohibits, we have to jump through a lot more hoops when we're done here to get the EPA to adjust that lien that's on the real estate records to permit this to go. So the least we can disturb the property, the better.
True, absolutely. Well, I don't anticipate that there's anything there. I think that the EPA was very cautious at the time that they,
I think that's probably correct, that
Yeah.
this particular site is a peninsula of a much larger portion, and the whole portion was designated as an EPA Superfund site, but I don't think anybody dumped anything on this site. And unfortunately, it wasn't cut off until after the designation, so it's the sins of the father are visited on the son.
well, I'm familiar because I knew one of the gentlemen from the EPA, and it was his bailiwick because he lives in Cumberland. He said, I think, we're retired. So I have a lot of knowledge about what went on there and all the way down Martin Street and so on. And some of the reasoning that they put in as far as, erring on the side of, caution. So, yeah, I don't anticipate you'd have any problems up there. Any other questions, comments? Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or comments and would like to address the board? If you do, please come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. Mr. Modica, anybody in the queue? Okay. Pleasure of the board.
So,
Two motions?
yeah, and I think you should do it's a variance and a special use permit? Justice? So it's just a special use permit? So I think you should do that first, and so this is the first time you're doing this. You're supposed to go through the standards. Do we have those? Are they in the recommendation? Okay, so you could just rely on the recommendation if they're in there.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the special use permit for 1140 Mendon Road, Assessors Plat 34, Lot 261, as the proposed use of the property as a physical therapy business will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent and purposes of the comprehensive plan.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Second by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to 1140 Mendon Road, Assessors Plat 34, Lot 261, that we grant approval of the master plan as the application is consistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan, based on the findings of fact in Mr. Modica's memo to the planning board dated 2/21/24.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Ms. Vrashich. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Good luck. I know you've got a road to hoe. It's too bad that you've got to go down that road, but. Item number 5, general discussion of comprehensive permits where no exterior construction or site improvements will occur. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to pose the question first and then give you some background. In terms of what would you want to see for a project where the only improvements are occurring on the inside of a building? So the background is we have a potential applicant who owns a building. There are 2 residential units on the 2nd floor.
Right here. Oops.
All right.
General discussion.
They want to put in affordable housing and go through a comprehensive permit. And the only thing they would be doing is creating new apartments within the building. There'd be no site improvements. You guys all set? Yep. Good night, Joe. So there's no site improvements. There wouldn't be any improvements to the exterior of the building. Everything would happen on the inside of the building. So the question is, if the applicant comes in applying for a comprehensive permit, would the board want to see, site plans or any other kind of survey? Where basically, from beginning of the project to the end of the project, you would see a difference on the property.
This is an existing building, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Is it like an older property or a?
It's a building.
So this is meant to be a general conversation.
Right.
We cannot be talking about a specific application.
Oh, okay.
But, and I want it to be a more general application. So the question is, if there's an existing structure with no site improvements, and they're just trying to add affordable units that are, you know, the space is already there.
Right.
This would be for any applicant, because we're gonna see some of this. How much do you need to see if there's not gonna be any improvements to the property? Except for a build-out, they really only need a building permit, but they need your approval because they're adding these units. And typically, it's gonna be something like the density isn't allowed. So you're, as the super board, under a comprehensive permit, you're granting density relief. You may be granting lot area relief under that comprehensive permit application. So, you know, in theory, you know, other than your approval for that extra density, they'd be going to the building official for a building permit. But of course, they want to know before they spend the money on architectural plans and construction plans, whether you're gonna approve the extra density. It's really just a matter of density.
I got a problem with this. Why does this have to be a secret?
Well, it's not, no. This is a general conversation about future applications. It's not a secret. It's just we don't have an application. But we thought it would be helpful if we came to you instead of having them submit nothing and waste a month with you where you say, we want more.
But you guys know we go on your recommendations. We listen to you and what you have to say and what you have to say. And that's how we make my decision.
Yep.
I'm not gonna talk about the board. So I don't understand.
So maybe,
this.
are you saying that if staff, Glenn, believes that a survey really isn't required or architectural plans really aren't required at this stage, you would be okay with that?
Certainly, I would take his recommendation
Okay.
and say, if I agree with it, I would go with it.
Yep.
If I disagree with it, I would say, no, I'm not involved.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
But we're just trying to have a general conversation because I think this is gonna happen more often. You had one a couple of years ago on Mendon Road, right? Did they see that yet?
Oh, yeah, 910 Mendon.
Yeah, so you've seen them.
But he had to show parking. That would be
Yeah,
the
so-
only place you'd need a site plan, I think, to show he's got parking.
So I think Glenn's just looking for your, like, kind of support that he'll make a determination as to what's really required. We don't want people to spend a lot of money if they don't have to, right? If they're just
Absolutely.
looking for extra density.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right, so-
But Glenn's recommendation to us, or to me, is what I would go on,
Yeah.
and that's how I would go, either in favor of or not in favor of.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
and I'm not speaking for the rest of the board. I'm saying this as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and we're just trying to do this for the property owner too, so that if we just came in without anything, and then you said, no, we want more, now they've wasted a month. So we just put it on the agenda to have the
Yeah,
discussion.
because I know there's a lot going on right now, and with all of these new regs
Yeah.
that are happening.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right, and I expected you to say that, but we just wanted to be transparent and open as to how Glenn thinks he should be proceeding, not making people spend a lot of money if they don't even know if you're gonna approve
Certainly
it.
Glenn has my support.
Yeah.
I'm speaking only for myself and not for the board, but he has my support.
Looking down the road,
Mr. Bush?
yeah, I'm just trying to think what problems could come up that we're not thinking about. I mean, if somebody tries to shoehorn too many units in a certain building, is there a minimum size of an apartment that has to be in the requirements for comprehensive plan units or not? Or,
Well, it's always got to be 25%, and there are bonuses allowed now in the new regulations based on the size of the property.
And on whether there's sewer and water available. So you're going to know, you are going to know the density in terms of, you know, the footprint or the gross floor area of the building. You're going to know that. So Glenn's going to do that calculation, and he's going to tell you, this is appropriate under state law and our regulations.
Well, if he doesn't bring it before us, he won't tell us that. He's got, if we're saying, we're just gonna let him make the decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
okay, I'm just
And then,
wondering.
and then if he thinks a parking plan is necessary because they need more parking, he's gonna tell the applicant, I'd like for the planning board to look at a parking plan. So, again, this is not meant to be a secret thing, it's meant just to let the board know how Glenn feels that an appropriate way to proceed by being efficient, that's it.
Lastly, I trust Glenn, but are we making a policy that's gonna go forward years forward where
Well,
we get someone who isn't as,
It wouldn't be a it depends, every project, it depends.
so I would say, by the way, if you come in, if Glenn comes in and gives advice to the property owner, and then you say, well, you know, we missed this, you really need a plan that shows this. That might happen once in a blue moon, but we're just looking for like an overall, you know, this is probably just gonna be a narrative. You're not gonna have any plans, which is unusual for a planning board. But if it's the same structure and nothing is happening except that he's gonna say, we're gonna put 2 more units in here because right now they're commercial. Or we're gonna, you know, right now there's 2, you know, I'm making all of this up. A duplex, and they're gonna make it into a 4-plex. You know, whatever the issue is, we're gonna put 2 more kitchens in, you know? Whatever that is, you're not doing anything to the structure at all. So, to me, it makes sense to do like a good narrative about what's going on with the property. He'll tell you that there's enough parking, and he'll tell you he likes the landscaping or, you know, the existing landscaping. And then sometimes he might say to the applicant, no, I think the planning board should see a plan for this situation, right? Yeah.
so there are times where he will bring it before us to let us know what's going on, or if it seems like it's out of the ordinary or needs more.
No, it'll always come.
It'll always
before
come
you.
Come before us.
Yeah, he's not approving anything administrative, everything still comes to us.
Right.
The
Okay.
question is, do we want to see all of this
No,
stuff for
got it.
somebody just putting 2 more units in
No,
a duplex?
I mean, unless they're changing the exterior of the building or doing something, I agree with you. It's,
Yeah, again, this is all new, and
Yeah.
I said to Glenn, I was the one that said, let's go to the planning board and kind of just talk it out with them about not providing a lot, but enough for you to make a decision, obviously.
no, I think it makes sense. I don't think. I want the applicant to be spending thousands of dollars to
Yeah.
put all these plans together. We're just gonna come in and say yes in 10 minutes, and, you know, so.
You know, and I've been on this board personally for many years, and I've always gone on the recommendation of our town planner, going back to way back.
Well, I know,
Way
but
back.
then we shouldn't have a board at all, we'll just have a town planner.
No, and certainly if we disagree with what the town planner has,
There you go.
we still voice our opinion, but I mean, it's respectfully, it is respectfully done, and I don't know. No, we don't. No, but most of the time we do. Most of the time we do. I respect the position, and,
I respect him and his work. I think it's
Yep.
great work. So,
I'm looking forward to several years with Glenn.
Several.
Several.
Lord, no.
Several.
Well, I won't be here in 70 years. No, I think that the threshold would be that if Glenn felt that the planning board needed to look at something, he would bring it.
If there's something to help you make a decision,
Yeah,
to
but
have
if
a plan.
it-
yeah.
if there were changes that were substantive, and we're looking at more exterior stuff.
It's only, it would be only interior.
Right. And, you know, if it's just some, you know, minor landscaping or something, it's like, well, it doesn't have to come to us.
Right.
But if there's, you know, some drainage has got to be done, and, you know, I mean, even if there was an existing parking lot and it was going to be repaved, why would it have to come here?
But it does have to go to you for approval.
Well, yeah.
All we're talking about is.
No, right.
Unless
yeah.
it's administrative issue, administrative approval, but Glenn, you've got my respect, buddy.
Comprehensive permits are not administrative. They will
Yeah.
come to you because you're granting relief as like a zoning board, right? So you're gonna see all these. It was only meant because he said, Kelly, what should the applicant provide? And I said, I don't think they should have to provide anything for this particular application that will come before you. But I said, why don't we just have a general conversation with the planning board about, because this is gonna keep coming up.
Yeah.
I feel between Kelly and Glenn here, whatever the decision that they make here, whatever that they recommend, I feel comfortable with. And I would keep the decisions.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to see the applicant go through this whole blown thing of all these plans and any kind of, you know, right, that doesn't really have any,
I mean, even a basic survey is a few grand, just to show existing conditions,
yeah, right.
and that wouldn't really help. Okay.
Wait a minute, Mr. Butler, you were quiet, you haven't said anything.
So moved,
Yeah.
so moved.
Okay, motion by Ms. Roshich and seconded by Mr. Costa,
Yep. And
or seconded by the entire board. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.